Welcome. My name is Colleen Tauke and I'm the sewing specialist here at FINAN Porter. In this Quilting Quickly tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put together the block in the quilt called Glad All Over. If you'd like to purchase our pattern, please visit our website. We're going to be using a great collection of blues, greens, and yellows in 2.5-inch precut strips today, and we're going to make this wonderful quilt that you can see, the kind of a woven block. It's really fun to put together, but there's a little bit of organization that goes into it. So you're going to want to use your diagrams and the specifics in the pattern to keep yourself organized. From those 2.5-inch strips, you're going to be cutting rectangles and squares, and you want to keep those paired together so that in each block, the block I have here in front of me, you're going to be using 2 of the rectangles and 2 squares. So as you cut them, you want to kind of organize them together. And then once you've cut pairs and the rectangles and squares, then you want to pair up 2 fabrics together. So in this example, I've got a yellow and a blue, so I would keep these together until I was done constructing all the block. Now there are outside pieces. This block's kind of put on point, which means it's put together in kind of diagonal rows. So we also will need, from strips in that background fabric, you're going to be cutting 3 3/4-inch squares. So we're going to have a strip that you're going to cut squares off of. And I've even given myself little cheat sheets. You'll probably want to do the same thing. So from these squares, you're going to cut these in half, corner to corner, just once. And you're going to make triangles that look like this. So once we have those triangles, we need 4 of them for each block. And then from the other strip of background fabric, we're going to cut a 4-inch strip. We're going to cut squares off of it, and then from those squares, we're going to cut diagonally in both directions to cut quarter square triangles, and I picked them up by accident. These are cut, like I said, cut both directions, and they're called quarter square triangles, and you'll need 4 of those for each of the blocks that you see here. Now, for the construction, how do we put all of that together to look like this? What I'm going to do is set this to the side, and I'm going to stand it on its point, because what we're going to do is create these rows that go into the block. So first what we're going to do is orient everything, kind of get it in our head. We've got a rectangle here. Then we're going to take a rectangle of the yellow. Oops. It's all about getting organized for this one. And then we're going to take a yellow here. Now we're going to go again. We're going to do the yellow square, the blue square, yellow rectangle, and then finish here with a blue. So we're just talking about the color portion here, not the background yet, just to try to get the orientation so that you can see that these are like fabrics here and here. The blue kind of goes through the center and kind of makes a weave. So what you want to do is you're going to join these into rows, here and here, and I have some of those already constructed, so I'm going to pull those out quickly, put in the rows that I have already stitched together. Now you got to make sure you get them oriented right. The blues should go opposite. So what I've done here is I've pressed all my seam allowances toward that center square here and towards the center one here. That means that when I join these together, I'll have opposing seams here. Seam allowances going in opposite directions, so I can get that nice, neat center join there. So it looks like the blocks just kiss each other. And then orient these blocks, because next thing we're going to want to do is be able to join these together, but we've got some missing spots here, right? So remember those quarter square triangles we created? Now go into these positions. And the best way to do this is just to lay it out near your sewing center so that when you pick things up, you keep everything organized. Now here's one other little tip that you can pick up. I have gotten a hold of some of these little tiny applique pins. They're shorter and they don't kind of get in your way when you're sewing. So what I want to do is I want to orient these so that I can take them to the sewing machine and not drop all my pieces on the way to the needle, right? So I'm going to lay these right sides together in the position they're going to need to be in, and I'm just going to put this little pin in, just kind of tag them together so that when I get to the sewing machine, they'll be in the proper position. So I can always reposition later, but this way I know I haven't twisted and turned anything. So I would take these to the sewing machine, and I've got some that are already joined. I'll show you how I've done that. Just keep stepping through. So here I have them pressed. So seaming, 1/4 inch seam there, pressed toward the outside. Got one there. There's second one is the same, 1/4 inch seam, press seam allowances to the outside, and it goes there. Now I can join down through the rows. I need to join the very center ones first. That's the easy one because we got opposing seams, remember about that pressing. Got one here. If I pull this back, you can see there my seam allowances are going different directions. When I've got done stitching it, I've gone and pressed that nice and flat. Now I'm going to join the top and bottom. Because we pressed our seam allowances here going outward, when you flip this on here, you're going to have an opposing seam here also. And at the very top, you're going to have the same thing here. You're going to have an opposing seam here. So you get that nice, neat, everything stays square and aligned. I've got that portion then stitched. I'll come in and show you. It's stitched there, press the seam towards the outside, again to the outside. We're almost there, but we're missing the outer edges of our block. Remember those other squares that we cut? Then we cut them just in half one time. Those now go out here. Now this is also a test of your 1/4 inch seam because everything needs to be close, doesn't always count. We really want to keep it aligned at a good 1/4 inch seam so that you get a nice even block when you're done. So here's a little tip for watching today. How do I line this up on here because the edges don't really match? If you lay this in position, see how that point goes right to that seam allowance? That means it's in the center. So that's what you look for. Align your cut edges over here. Make sure that point is right on the seam allowance and take this to the machine, 1/4 inch seam here. You can do that same little tip all the way around. Get your cut edges aligned, make sure that tip is right on that seam allowance or seam right there. And like I said, all 4 sides work the same way. So your marker is that seam all the way around. And then when you're done stitching, press your pieces to the outside edge. And those are the pieces there trimmed, little dog ears off, and you've got the block for Glad All Over. Now, you just need to go and repeat that process quite a few times. Follow your instructions for the number of blocks you're going to be making. This quilt is also done, we have something we call pre-sashing, which means that you're asked to cut a number of sashing bars like this, and you're going to attach them to just one side of a certain number of blocks. And I'll show you in the quilt behind me. See how the blocks don't actually touch each other? That's where that sashing bar comes into play. But you're going to leave some of the blocks without a sashing bar here because it has an outer border. So make sure that you follow the instructions for how many blocks get pre-sashing and how many you leave without. Then when you go to put the rows together, there's also a sashing bar that goes all the way across the block so that you can have those pieces kind of float in your block. Finish it with a navy blue binding and you are glad you're done. Glad all over. If you'd like to see more of our Quilting Quickly tutorials, please visit our website. Thanks for joining me.